Yeah.
You know, Walter talked about how hard everybody worked on this, and I just, you know, reiterate that every time I come into the office, into Gary's office, over the past several months, there's always, you know, a half dozen people with various stages of pulling their hair out, trying to get what they want, and when everybody else is wanting the same part of the pie. And, you know, what I see, what Art was saying, clarifying what Walter was not liking in there, I think it's our revenues are not increasing as fast as our service expectations are. I guess that'd be another good way to put it. You know, I don't think that's what we came up with, but it's kind of the way I see it going. As far as payment management, you know, I sit on that same, you know, that's basically all I do in my regular job is we worry about that. And, you know, with that new motor user money coming in and you know, when equipment wears out, that's one of the first things you got to try and get, or, you know, you can't really fix something with stuff that's broken down. But I'm hoping that once we see, you know, the next, hopefully 3/4 of motor user money coming in, we'll be able to have a little history there by the time next year's budget comes around. We might see a little more than 2 1/4 here as far as the city's concerned, you know, with lowering fuel prices. That's really, we're seeing increases in it before the tax increase happens. So hopefully that'll, you know, only be a multiplier on top of that. So, you know, I appreciate the fact that the council appreciates how it might take a little longer than a year to get some of our goals done, but we are obviously making strides towards getting those goals completed. I do agree with Walter, though, that we need to make, you know, put more money into that, you know, the hot mix on the ground. You know, let's make sure we get some of those streets fixed. I drive 3rd Street every day coming down here, and there's just, that's about the section that I think we got to put on the priority map there. So, but I'm in favor of this sucker. Let's move forward.
Jim?
This is my first trip through the budget process, and I want to compliment you guys on how concisely it's presented. For somebody that's new, to try and understand a document this large has been very helpful to me, and going through the major challenge areas to identify prioritize things that we need to be working on. That's been very helpful. So thank you for that. As far as the pavement management thing, I don't think that we are ever going to solve that problem if we want to have a pavement management rating of 80 or above in the city. We're not going to do that without bonding for that and catching everything up at some point. We'll constantly be fighting this, and it will constantly be declining until we do something to add a bunch of revenue from it, and we're probably not going to get it from regular property taxes. We're probably going to have to bond for that to catch it up. It's just a fact of life.
Walter?
Mayor, thank you. One final comment, and it comes off of something Dan said, that I believe, to paraphrase, revenues are not increasing as fast as needs.
Expectations,
okay. And I think this is probably where I'm philosophically different in terms of the approach to the budget. I would prefer, and I've said this before year after year, I'd prefer to see the budget done from a what do we need to spend in the first place, as opposed to how much money have we got and where do we spend it. I don't think there's any amount. If this was a $100 million revenue budget, I bet y'all could spend it, and I don't mean waste it. I mean spend it.
Sure.
There's no end to the needs of a city in terms of fixing, repairing, building new, whether it's restrooms, parks, just ad infinitum. The problem I've got, and I've said this before, is working from how much revenue can we get, and then going through that 3 or 4 month process you all go through of how we're going to spend it. I'd much rather see a process where you go through with the what do you really need, and then add that up, see that you hadn't got enough money to do it, and then figure out where you're going to cut to get back. And again, it's philosophical. And that's my problem with the way the city budget works. The other thing is, I attended a presentation at the Association of Idaho Cities by the city manager of Twin Falls, and he made a couple of comments that got my attention. And I know it's a city manager form of government, it's different from the way we operate, but he said that by the time they present the budget tonight for public hearing, they've had 12 public meetings on the budget. This is our second. Now, whether or not 12 meetings publicly would get more people than Victoria to comment on the budget, I kind of wonder. Victoria's taken my place. I've been known to comment that the only person to come at a budget hearing and talk about it was myself at some point. But, so I don't know how you get the public to dial in, and why I seem to care so much when I wonder whether they do or not sometimes. But individually, when you talk to them, they do talk about what it costs to run this little monster, and it really is expensive to do. I've got a philosophical problem with it. I've been through this thing ad infinitum. I've worried Don to death, including most of today, with questions about details, and then we've got an appointment to talk about sanitation funding after this. So, at any rate, again, kudos for the 2.5%, for all the hard work, the effort that goes into it.
Thank you.
Well, at this point, I'd like to move that we approve the ordinance on the budget under suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings. And do we need a second motion afterwards for the authorization of the execution?
It could be all in one motion if you want.
Can be.
Yeah. And further, would like to authorize the mayor's execution of the L2 property tax certification in the aggregate amount of $5,381,765.
I'll second that.
Okay, Art made a motion, seconded by Dan, to approve the 2016 annual appropriation ordinance as presented under the suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, as well as authorizing the mayor to execute the City of Moscow property tax certification L2 in the aggregate amount of $5.381765 million. And that would be forwarded to Latah County in accordance with the law. Further discussion? John, I'll start the roll with you.
Aye.
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 Okay, make me note that we had 5 ayes on that, and so I will read the ordinance 20-15, 2015-15? -13. Okay, ordinance 2015-13, an ordinance entitled Annual Appropriation Ordinance appropriating $63,899,534 for the purpose of defraying all necessary expenses and liability of the City of Moscow, Latah County, State of Idaho, for the 2016 fiscal year beginning the first day of October 2015 and ending the 30th day of September 2016, and allotting resources by the fund for said appropriations for the objects and purposes set forth in this ordinance, levying ad valorem taxes in the amount of $5,472,215 for 2016 fiscal year, providing that this provisions of this ordinance be deemed severable, providing for this ordinance to be in full force and effect from and after its passage, approval, and publication according to law.